other people sell businesses. So sometimes I work for buyers, but I typically start off with the seller and then find buyers. And yes, heavily in my education, I'm a certified business intermediary through the International Business Brokers Association. On the last conference, there's 331 of me in the United States, so it's a pretty high. Courses and so on to take, certified business broker through the California Business Brokers Association, certified middle market business intermediary. Started off my career as a CPA, I got an MBA in finance. I'm kind of a numbers guy, and I analyze numbers a lot when I'm dealing with business. The first question there is, why have an exit strategy? I have one. I sprinkle this with a lot of quotes. But one of my favorite is, if you're failing to plan, you're planning to fail. So there's so many problems you can avoid if you plan, not only an exit strategy, but selling a business and buying a business and your family, real estate, whatever. Planning goes a long way. I have a question there. If you were hit by a truck on your way home today, what would happen to your business? I've been involved in business like that, where the owner drops over with a heart attack, gets killed, gets disabled, goes in the hospital, never comes out, and their business quickly goes to zero. I mean, the widow tries to sell it, but it sells for a lot less than it would otherwise. Where a little bit of planning would have resulted in a much better outcome than that. In developing an exit strategy, point 2 talks about the strategic team. And one of the people on your team is your financial advisor. Your financial advisor knows about your finances, where you want to go. You talk to them or her, tell about your objectives, and they know how much resources you have and when you want to retire, your 401k plan, all that. And your business. The business is typically the majority portion of a person's net worth, typically 80%. So a typical business person has 80% of their wealth in the business, like in their house and cars or whatever. 80% of the in the business, and they pay very little attention to it. Is my experience. So a financial advisor will be a big help. An attorney. We all don't like dealing with attorneys. They're suing you. You're on the other side of the fence. I thank the Lord I've never been sued. This is California. I hope I can say that 5 years from now, but it's tough. But attorneys are really essential in important areas of your life, and certainly in your exit strategy, your business, helping you set up a business to begin with. I've had a lot of attorneys that help people set up their attorney with the wrong entity. It makes it hard, tax-wise, otherwise. Whether they have a partnership, but the attorney doesn't think of it, or they don't have an attorney in there for a buy-sell agreement. I'm dealing with a big company here in Temecula right now. And it's 2 partners, 50-50. That's the worst possible thing that you can have. Because unless both partners agree, you can't do anything. One partner has a health issue, he wants to sell. The other partner's younger, his kids are just in college, one of them in medical school, so I don't want to sell my portion. I'm making good money here, splitting the profits 50-50. So the other partner's saying, well, I'll sell my part, my half, and then we'll still split the profit. Well, he sells his half to another person, that person works there, and he's going to take, he or she's going to take $150,000, $200,000. That's going to be less profit for the partner that's staying, so we get half of that. So there's issues. And oftentimes when, say often, the majority of the times when there's a 50-50 partnership, the business ends up kind of collapsing and becoming worth nothing. The latest discussion is, hey, we'll just divide the company in half. I'll take mine. It's a big machine shop. I'll take my machines over here. And I'll take my customers and most of the employees. Of course, the partner that wants to stay. So they're not going to agree on anything. There is a process you can appeal to. You can petition the court, and the court can direct that the company has to solve the whole thing. And maybe the buyer will keep the partner. But anyway, an attorney on the front end is really helpful. I spent most of my career in Orange County, and in Orange County, people hired attorneys and consultants and financial advisors and so on. But in Riverside County, what I found is there's a real aversion to it. County, trying to talk a business owner into hiring somebody, like Wes, who's a good guy, could add a lot of value, then I don't know how to spend that much money. There's a lot of business, I'd say, wow, 4 businesses that I talked to, I said, new business. Really be hard to sell. But why don't you do these following things? Hire a consultant, get a website. I have a 2 o'clock appointment today with a company doing $80 million. They don't have a website. So, and it's very saleable, I think. They're making good money, but they don't have a website. It really makes it hard for the company to grow, for them to, for it to have value. A lot of that. Estate planner, along the lines of financial advisor, CPA, tax advisor. CPA, yes, sir.
I'm sorry to stop you.
That's all right.
When you say putting the website brings value in the company, does that increase value in the value of the company, like the valuation?
Yes.
Do you know by how much of a percentage, or it would vary?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if they put it on the website, call it the website. I mean, there's several websites.
Yeah, I know the traffic.
Yeah, there's websites where you can go on and actually order a product on those killer websites.
Oh, yeah, well, we understand that we are in the software industry. So
yeah.
I just wanted, if I could use that fact.
Yeah. Business valuation, there's so many factors that they'll talk about it. And a website is one. In fact, I've got a discussion agenda for my client. Positives and concerns about selling your business. The positives, I have a number of positives. And the concerns, one of them is you don't have a website. And if you had a website, the business would be worth more. 10%, 20%, if it's one week order product. I've got another client, manufacturing company. He's got a website and started selling online. His online sales are going like this.
Right.
Regular sales are going like this. The 2 together are up, so it adds a lot. Probably had 25%. So CPA, tax advisors, they can help you on the front end, establish the right entity, partnership, buy-sell agreement, other things that will keep you out of trouble. Certainly most businesses want to incorporate. If you don't incorporate your personal assets online, as you probably know. Business sales advisor, that's where I come in. And I'm happy to meet with a business owner that says, you know what, I've been selling business in 5, 6 years. I'm not being around that long, hopefully. And I'd like to meet with them, go through their financials, tell them what their business is worth, and what the metrics are. Each industry kind of starts off with a multiple, it's called, multiple EBITDA or multiple sellers subscription, depending on what industry, how big it is. But that multiple, let's say for a auto repair shop, today it's like 1.7 times. I'd sell a lot of auto repair shops. My dad had an Expo service station when I was a kid. I was 18, early 20s, so I like to sell gasoline, tires. I sell a lot of auto repair shops. And they sell for 1.7 times on average. But if they've only been around a year and a half, I'm meeting with one next week, and in business just over a year. That's a reduction. Been around for 40 years. I got one that's been around 50 years. That's a little bit more. The number of services they provide a lot of services, brakes, tires, tune-ups, oil changes, the whole thing, maybe replace transmission, more services. So there's a whole bunch of factors that will push that 1.7 up or down. And that's where business advisor comes in. A little caution there on 2F. Sometimes your advisors have hidden agendas. I've seen this clearly a few times. Your accountant is making $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 from your business from doing the financials and the tax return and so on, and that's an annuity that they would like to go on for another 5, 10 years. If you sell your business, the likelihood that the buyer is going to keep that accountant and that attorney, it's not very high. Sometimes they keep it, but usually don't. So your accountant can say, no, I think your business is worth this. I've seen this so many times. The business is worth this, and the accountant says, I think your business is worth this, and you shouldn't sell for anything less than that. Well, that's a totally unrealistic number. The attorney will pick apart the documents, and part of it is they don't want to lose the account, maybe. And part of it is just protecting themselves. If they recommend that, hey, you shouldn't sell to them, and you end up selling to them, and they don't pay the seller note. There's usually a seller note when you sell your business. And the buyer doesn't pay the seller note, then the seller complains to his accountant, so I told you should have sold to that guy, or the lawyer says, I warned you about him, or whatever. So anyway, that's a little sideline on strategic buyer.
Do you see certain businesses being more valuable into this market, or certain niche that people are looking for?
Oh yeah, there's a big difference in valuation of business. Like I say, auto repair 1.7 times, the e-commerce business 5 to 6 times. If the numbers are ramping. Anything having to do with medical devices, medical services, medical labs, they sell for a high multiple. I sold a collection agency down in Atchison for 7 times. They sell for 7, 8 times. So each industry, like I say, has a metric. If it's a restaurant today, it's 1.8 times. And again, you just have it down. They sell for 2.5. They sell for 1 times. But there are industries that sell better. B2B businesses sell well. E-commerce, anything having to do with medical, manufacturing is still in big demand. I think that's because so many Americans get laid off in the manufacturing sector. And when they go look for a job, that's what happened to me. I was president and CEO of a manufacturing business in Irvine. I helped sell the company, got commission to buy it from the parent company. I was their CFO prior to that, the parent company. I was in to turn the company around and sell it more or less. I did that. And after a couple of years, the buyer started asking me to do things I wasn't comfortable with, and I refused. So he fired me because I was not a company man. So I started looking for a company to buy. Well, guess what kind of company I wanted to buy? I wanted to buy a manufacturing company because I spent most of my career after CPA, 4 years at the accounting firm. I tried to buy a manufacturing company, and I got poor service from the 3 different brokers I worked with. So after the third miss, we tried to buy a manufacturing company. My wife and I tried to buy a manufacturing company in Corona, and it didn't happen. And I told my wife at dinner, I said, you know what? If Bob, the broker out of Orange County, can drive around in a black Mercedes and have a nice high-rise office at the Atrium in Irvine and not return phone calls, not really understand the business he's selling, and not know how to do a camera on. I sold 5 subsidiaries and divisions in corporate America. I said, I'm not going to buy a business. I want to become a broker and work hard and work on the bless. And looking back, I just wish I'd been fired about 20 years ago. I love what I'm doing. It is so much fun. And, it's a learning experience, which I like. Valuation, number 3. There's different ways to value a company, from good to bad or bad to good. But I guess it is good to bad. Going concern. Now, the going concern, you're going to get the highest value. Yes.
Should I ask my question after?
No. There we go.
Okay. I'm very familiar with the Nokia and Microsoft acquisition, and he's our CEO of Nokia, or at the time, I'm not sure he was CEO. He was a former executive of Microsoft. And you mentioned something about that hidden gems. What are ways to investigate that to ensure that you're doing business with the right advisor?
Right advisor. At that level, you got some pretty ethical people. I mean, everybody knew where his background was and so on. But on some occasions, I recommended to my seller that they hire a private investigator to investigate the buyer, see what their background is. Good example, that collection agency I sold in Escondido. We, as brokers, don't do due diligence on the buyer or the seller. It'd be a conflict of interest for me to say, you know what, I'm a CPA, look at the seller's financials and they're rock solid. You don't have to worry about that. But I get a commission if it sells, so I can't give opinions in terms of due diligence. I don't do due diligence for the seller either. Well, the owner of the collection agency had the ability to drill down and find out about this buyer. Because they had this capability in terms of going after debtors. They didn't check this guy out. It turned out he wasn't who he said he was. The guy bought his business with a small down payment, leased his house here in Temecula. The seller got his RV and drove across the country. When he came back 6 weeks later, his company was gone. funds and transferred them to another account. It was XYZ Inc. He changed it to XYZ LLC and transferred the money over. Never paid his rent on the building, never paid the rent on his house, never paid any employees, didn't pay the phone bill, and the seller ended up going bankrupt. So that would have been, I didn't recommend you check this guy out because he had the ability to check him out, but he didn't do it. So due diligence is important. But going concern, that's the best way. That's a business that's in business, prospering, and there's no troubles. The business is kind of struggling and maybe breaking even, making a little money, losing money that it's before, asset sales about what it would cost to replace those assets. They don't have a lot of goodwill. They'll get a little bit of goodwill, but not much. Then liquidation value. The business is shut down, and the value is what those assets will sell at auction. That's the worst case scenario. There's a number of factors that affect the value of a business, and I will hand out my list. 3, 4, 5. Like I say, we start off with the standard multiple of that industry, and then look at these factors. Say, hey, financial results, that's the first and the most important one. So financial results and the trend of those results. Because if those results are headed down, the business is going to sell for a lot less than they're going to. For example, I said, hey, if this business, they made $500,000 last year. You say, hey, great, that sounds good. Tell me more. Well, the year before they made $680. The year before that they made $760. Well, the numbers look at it this way: that business can be valued a whole lot less than if they made $500,000 last year, $380 the year before, $270 the year before that. So it's the trend of those numbers, not just the absolute value. Other factors. Personal service business. If you're a business and you got to watch out for it in your industries, if you are the business is going to sell for 1 times, maybe 3/4 of a year's earnings. Because the buyer's going to say, hey, when you walk out the door and I step in and somebody calls and says, well, where's so-and-so? Well, I bought the business. That will probably motivate you. Well, let me check around. I've been talking about it to another vendor. I might check them out. So position your business as you get bigger such that you are not the business. One way to do that is have an organization chart with you as a president, you have 3 vice presidents, and you got directors and so on. But then, of course, you're limited by how many people you have. But give them not only title, but also responsibility. If you got a salesperson, they need to be the primary contact with the customers that they're dealing with. If the seller is the business, and I see this a lot in small business, they're the salesperson, they do the spouse does the accounting, they're out there leading the team on the manufacturing floor, they're also have an engineering background, so they're everything. So if someone comes in, number one, it's hard to find somebody that has all those skill sets. But again, because the business is primarily based on that person, the business is going to sell for less than if that was not the case. It wasn't a personal service business. Financial records, that is a real big problem with a lot of the smaller businesses, and they don't have good financial records. I have companies that sold companies where they didn't do anything but watch their checkbook until the end of the year, then they give all their stuff to their account, and their account does their tax return, and they say, well, I'm okay, I got $100,000 in their bank account. And it doesn't cost them much to do it that way, but you go sell your business. I tell them, hey, hire an accountant, so they produce monthly financials. During due diligence, the buyer's going to ask a lot of questions, and you're going to get back to them some answers, some accurate answers, pretty timely. They go away. So have good financial records, customer and vendor relationships. Those are important. On the customer side, if you have customer concentration, that's a reduction of the value. Got a business I'm working with here in Marietta. 73% of their sales is with 3M. So if someone buys that business and the buyer loses 3M, they're not making $400,000, they're losing 90. That's how I calculated it. So that's called risk, and the buyer's going to factor that risk into the price, and it's going to sell for a whole lot less than 3M is 15%. 15 is kind of the max before you start seeing a deduction. Similarly with vendors, if you have a sole source vendor, all your product comes from one vendor. That vendor can charge you whatever they want. You can't go anywhere else. So that's a risk. So, and you want a good relationship. I sold a business in Southgate a few years ago. and he had 5 different vendors for his product. He was periodically order a big load of inventory, and he would query them all, say, okay, I need so many, it was a foam product. He took a box of foam, about 8 of them, filled his room, and cut them into slices, and made cushions for chairs and so on. Very successful business. Very smart guy. He was making so much money. But he would query his 5 vendors, say, oh, yeah, I need 20 blocks, and it's $30,000, whatever. And so they would quote him, and then he would take the lowest quote and try to negotiate him down. He was really good on getting his cost down. So he did not have a single vendor relationship. Unreported cash. This is a problem with at least half the companies I deal with. If they're retail, if they're service-oriented, and they get some of their revenue with cash, it's often hard for them to report it. If they report it, they have to pay income taxes on it. But when you go to sell your business, the buyer's going to have a hard time believing, well, here's my tax return, but by the way, I had another $50,000 in cash last year. Pretty common in the auto repair shop business. I got 2 of them on my panel list, and one says I'm making $35,000, $40,000 cash every year. And there's ways that they can document it, but it signals to the seller right up front that you're a dishonest person. You're cheating the federal and state government. You're cheating sales tax. They don't report the sales tax, and it's not good. If you're doing that, I tell them, hey, you've already sold your company somewhere on the installment basis. You've made some money by not reporting that, so that's part of your sale price. Because the buyer's not going to put much confidence in you telling them that 30 or 50 or 100 grand for the sale. And this company today, they're pretty clean. They're B2B, but they sell their scrap. Their scrap's, I don't know, 10 or 12 grand a year. Not a big deal for a business, but it does signal to the buyer something about the seller and their ethics. Extraordinary add-backs. When we value a business, we start off with an Excel schedule for each year. First column is every number off the tax return. Second column is what we call add-backs. We add back EBITDA, interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. That gets to EBITDA. That's kind of a benchmark number for, especially for bigger companies. For smaller companies, then we add the owner benefits, officer salary, company car, health insurance, kids they're being paid out of the business. They're going to school at Berkeley. Things that a buyer's not going to have to pay after they buy the business. Those are called owner benefits. We add those back, and the total of all that's called seller's discretion earnings. And that's how business is valued. That's that 1.7 times, 3 times, 5 times, whatever. But the more add back you have, the harder it is to get a buyer excited. Because all these add backs, they got to verify that it's investment. So the fewer add backs, the better. When I have a business that has just a few add backs, sometimes I have one with no add backs. Everything really crystal clear and clean. And that business will sell better and will higher value. Lease terms and landlord relationships. I always ask the seller, hey, how's your relationship with your landlord? Well, sold the business in Laguna Niguel early this year. And her answer was, I sued him about 3 years ago and I won. And I said, well, that's not good because when you sell your business, they get even. Because they have to approve the buyer of your business if that location is critical. The location isn't critical and you can move across the street or down the street. It's not a big deal. But I tell them, hey, make up with your landlord. It's important that you have a good relationship with them, that you're counting on them. I think in this case, the landlord was happy to see this client, this tenant go, so there wasn't a big problem. See, there was another example. Listed a daycare center in Corona, and she had signed a 20-year lease. It was into it year 3. It was above market, and there was an accelerator goes up 5% every year for 20 years. And she was about 30 or 40% over market at that point already. Well, she signed it at a bad time, and then the economy went down, and the lease rates went down, but not hers. At the end of the lease says, they typically say it can be renewed. You have a 5-year renewal option at fair market value, is what most of them say. Hers said, at fair market value, at the greater of fair market value or 5% 5% more than the last rate. So I told her, you'll never be able to sell your business because it's just going. So if she'd had an attorney take a look at that lease before she signed it, she'd be much better off. Well, wait a minute. 5% escalator doesn't make any sense. 3% is the norm. And fair market value is just the deal. And rather than doing 20 years, why don't you do a 5-year or 2 5-year options so you can get out of it after 5 years rather than 20 years. And there's a Steve Turner, no, he's not a top guard here in Temecula. He's a tenant rep. I refer him to a number of people. And he'll review a lease before you sign it, or help you get out of that lease, or help you find another business. He's a very talented guy. So again, somebody who should have used an attorney or some professional up front, it would have allowed her to sell her business. Now she's just stuck. The landlords is taking more and more of her profit. Her net is going down and down. At some point, she's going to say, you know what, I'm not making any money. I'm just going to close the business. Let's close the business. Now the landlord can sue her for leaving space until they find someone else because you can't just walk away from the lease. Scalability, upside potential, it's important in terms of the valuation of your business to have upside potential scalability. But I'm talking to a business like this one today. I think they're pretty much at capacity. They have 66,000 square feet. And, I went through their factory a couple weeks ago, and they have a small second shift. The only upside to them is increasing their second shift. It's hard to get them to work second shift. But if their business was at 50-60% capacity, it would be worth more. The buyer could buy that and grow the business without paying a lot of overhead. The rent's already paid. Utilities would be a whole lot different to run more business through that first shift. So scalability, upside potential. I got one right now. He's saying, I just got this new contract with a large company. I said, well, let's not put it on the market now. Let's wait until you've got 3 or 4 or 6 months worth of experience, and you can say, hey, this new customer's added $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 to my gross, so much to my net. Makes your business be worth more. And then if you lose a customer, it goes down. So there's, like I say, there's this metric thing that gets adjusted up or down based on what's happening. Curb appeal, kind of like a house. If your business looks good, when someone pulls up, it'll sell better than if it needs a paint job. The parking lot hasn't been slurried in 10 years. The sign is at an angle, or the night is not lit up, or not all the letters are lit up, stuff like that. It's just that first impression kind of thing. So curb appeal is important. There's a couple of quotes going. Middle of the first page. This is my favorite thing. The nicest thing about not planning is that failure comes as a complete surprise and is not preceded by a period of worry and depression. The worry and depression after you figure out what you should have done, it would take you a lot of money. The next is what you do ahead of time and how it is done that usually decides whether you win or lose. Taxes are an important part of the business. Especially when you sell it. There's huge differences in the tax effect of selling a business. If you sell it the wrong way or you have the wrong entity. Most businesses sell as an asset sale versus a stock sale. Stock sale is where a buyer says, oh, I like your company. You're a corporation. I'm going to buy your 1,000 shares or 10,000 shares. That's what you would like to do because you get capital gains on that. But if the buyer buys your stock, there's 2 negatives. One is every liability, known and unknown liability, they pick up. They're just stepping into your shoes. So if one of your drivers ran over somebody the day before close, or somebody got wrong last year, and sues that company, you, the buyer, are in line to deal with that lawsuit, that problem, that liability. Secondly, if a buyer buys your stock, you've been around 10 years or whatever, you depreciate everything down to this value. That's all they get to write off. It's the net book value of what you've got left. Whereas if they pay this for it, this much of it being goodwill, they get to write off every dime. So buyers doesn't want to buy your stock because of losing the step up in the basis of their purchase, and secondly, assuming your liability. They want to buy your assets. They will form a new corporation, buy your assets, plug them into the new corporation. Now they're totally insulated from your known and unknown liability. And whatever they pay for your assets in the new corporation, they get to write off every dime. So that's the norm. It's hard to do when you're a C corp. A C corp, like say a buyer doesn't want to buy a corporation, but with a C corp, there's no capital gain. So if you have a C corp, you sell your assets, the corporation sells the assets, and now it shows the gain. Here's their cost basis, here's what you sold it for, that much is taxable income. Ordinary corporate rates, no lower rate for selling those assets that way. And then whatever's left, that amount of cash that's left after that tax hit gets distributed to the owners as a dividend, or payroll, or whatever. And so the buyer, the seller, pays taxes on the second time. So if you have a C corp, there's some benefits to a C corp. Actually, my company is a C corp, but there's some benefits, but there's some negative too. If you anticipate selling it 10 years out, you can convert it to an S corp, change the C corp to an S corp. But if you sell it in 2 years, 5 years, 8 years, 9 years, it will be treated as a C corp sale. The IRS is very smart and saying, well, we're not going to let you change your entity at the last minute and sell and get capital gains. So if you convert to an S, you got to wait. There's a 10-year window before you get capital gains on that sale. I'm dealing with one right now in preschool in Riverside. They converted just over 9 years ago. So they got to wait until your C corp problem goes away. I said, no, there's a health issue. We're going to sell now. So they're going to sell now, but they're going to end up making less money after taxes than if they had an S corp or converted earlier. Personal goodwill for some businesses. Even if it's a C corp, especially if it's a C corp, you, the seller, can say, you know what, the business is really me. I am the business. It's named after me. I'm a personal service business kind of person. So when I sell my corporation, I'm going to sell two pieces. I'm going to sell my personal goodwill. There's some process you have to follow and get an appraisal and so on. I'm going to sell my personal goodwill personally. That's capital gains to me, because I understand it. And the asset sale or stock sale of that C corp will be taxed the old way in a favorable way. So that's one way to get around the C corp double taxation. And then your financial advisor, there's trusts, annuities, there's a lot of techniques you can use even with C corp to lower your tax rate, but that's beyond my scope of knowledge. I just use that. If you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan, like the IRS. The IRS is very tenacious. I put out an email every Sunday night. If you give me your card open, it goes down to a little over 7,900 people. I still about 1 out of 10 businesses that are built that. One of the quotes I used a couple of years ago at tax time was, what's the difference between a Rottweiler and a tax auditor? The answer is the Rottweiler eventually lets go. The IRS is not. You don't get crossways with the IRS because they have their ways of doing things, and it's tough. Succession or business transfer. There's a whole lot of ways to dispose, sell your business. One is succession. I run into a lot of businesses where their husband or wife started the business, their sons are there, their son-in-laws, their daughter-in-laws, their grandnephews. I talked to a sign company in Canada. He had 7 employees making really good money, very profitable business. There were 7 employees. When the business sold, the owner, his wife, his 2 sons, and the daughter-in-law were all leaving. So what did that mean? He leaves 2 assemblers, or direct labor. The business was worth a whole lot less because he had the so you go overboard with this family thing, made it very unsaleable. I wasn't able to sell it. But that is a really good way of exiting your business is pass it on to your children with a seller note, and you're kind of an advisor or whatever. I've had a number of owners that had their son or daughter working there. Well, we thought of selling to your son. Well, yeah, but he couldn't handle it if you fail. This is a big part of it. Remember I mentioned 80% of typically business owners' equity or value net worth is in that business. I can't afford to trust that with my son or my daughter. It would be great if I could do that's a good way for some. There's been a number of successful practice business I'm meeting with today. It's the third generation. And there's a fourth generation involved, but they don't have confidence in them out there. So transfer of ownership to relatives. Buy-sell agreement with your partners. Again, if you have a partnership, get a lawyer involved and have things sorted out so that if there's any problem. Typically, a buy-sell agreement has a life insurance, so if both partners, if one of them gets hit by a truck, now the remaining partner has to buy out the widow. There's usually a formula in the buy-sell agreement so they'll get themselves. If something happens, there's a death of one of the partners, and the partner pays three times SDE or whatever. But the remaining partner doesn't have the money, typically. I mean, we're going to come up with $1 million or $500,000. We'd have a life insurance policy that creates that cash that pay off the widow. So that's something a good attorney will talk to you about, the buy-sell agreement. Absentee ownership. Absentee ownership businesses seldom are successful. I've dealt with a number of them. It's hard to get a hired CEO to do as well as you're going to do. But it is an option, and some of them do work. In fact, I'm working with a business here in Temecula, it's a manufacturing business, and I talked to them about 2 years ago, and they said, and they were making a boatload of money, like $700,000. And I said to myself, they were in their late 60s, but I said to myself, why would they sell the business? The business was going to sell for about $2.5 million, but they were making so much money. If I were them, I said to myself, I would just hire someone to replace me and come in, once or 2 days a week, and move things over. And that's what they decided to do. But after 2 years, it seldom works out. After 2 years, they're not working out. We want to put it on the market. The numbers have gone down, so it's worth less. But sometimes that can work out really well, being an absentee ownership. For some businesses, absentee works great. Like if you have a chain of Taco Bells or Burger King or something like that, that's common for a franchise. For one owner to have 5, 6, I know a guy in Corona that has 40-some-odd Burger Kings. And he's making a boatload of money, and he's sort of absentee, certainly not at any one of the Burger Kings, but hamburgers, but he's ordering product, he's negotiating this, he's hiring people, he's finding new facilities, all these, selling some that are profitable, dealing with employee theft, whatever. But that it works well in franchises. The franchise has usually a pretty tight system for like point of sale. It precludes the franchisee from stealing from the franchisor. So if it works well, then the employees have a hard time stealing from the franchisee. Like in a restaurant, food service, that's pretty common to have employees walk out with some of your cash. So with a good POS system, cameras and so on. But so it works well. Absentee works well for franchises. And then, of course, the normal route is the sale of the business, which is what I do. And of course, it takes as much energy to wish as it does to plan. I have another handout, 15 ways for owners to maximize the value of their business. And it kind of goes along, covers some of the things I've already hit, but there's something I give to sellers, especially if their business isn't really ready to sell. Oftentimes I'll talk to a business owner and say, I can sell your business, but it won't sell for much. If you do make a few changes, maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, sell for a much higher price. And those are some of the ideas that I share with them. I'd like to say they always follow my advice, but I would say they seldom follow my advice. I say start reporting their cash. I come back to them a couple of years later, they're still not reporting their cash. And I tell them up front, hey, if you report your cash, you're going to get another 15%. It's going to cost you 15% taxes, maybe. But if you report that cash, the additional dollar missing up here, falls right down to the bottom line, and I'll get you $1.75, $2, $3, depending on the metrics. So certainly, if you have a short-term horizon, start reporting all your cash. But it must be like a drug; they can't get off of it. Seldom people start reporting their cash. Sales proceeds can come in many different ways. Most sellers say, you know what, I'm going to sell my business for all cash. Few businesses sell for all cash. If they do sell for all cash, there's like a 20%, 15% anyway deduct. So the business is worth X. That's worth. Let's say the business is worth $1 million. If you get somebody to pay $1 million cash, they're going to want a discount. They'll pay $850 cash because they're taking a lot of risk by paying you cash. You get the cash, you walk off into the sunset. You don't honor your non-compete. You don't honor your seller-provided training. You poison the water in some way, and they're kind of stuck. Whereas if they pay, let's say the business is worth $1 million on a seller note, they pay say $800 now, and a $200,000 seller note. Now the seller has some motivation for that buyer to be successful, because the seller note has a right of offset. So if they buy the business and the seller does something dysfunctional, doesn't honor their contract, then the buyer will say, "You dirty rat! You said you were going to do that. So I'm not going to pay your seller note, or I'm going to discount by $100,000 or whatever." So because of that, they're transferring, the seller is transferring some of that risk. I'm sorry, the buyer is transferring some of that risk to the seller, and so you get a better price. And I argue to my seller, hey, if you demand all cash, you might get $850. If you do a seller note, you can get $800, and the chances of you getting that $200 is pretty high. Plus, it's an installment sale. I'm supposed to give accounting or tax advice, but my understanding is that an installment sale, that $200,000 paid out over 5 years can spread out, lower tax hit. So it's a better deal, but it's your call, not mine. So all cash versus a seller note. Like I say, most businesses sell with a seller note. Even when the seller has all cash, and there's a lot of people out there who don't sell in cash. And I talked to one last night who's got more than twice what the business is asking for cash. But he ain't going to pay all cash. He already told me that. It's not surprising because it's a tow company. You know, there's issues with tow companies, issues with all businesses, but he's going to pay something less. I think it'll take only a 6-month note for maybe a third of the price or a quarter of the price. And that'll be enough time for the buyer to understand that, hey, the seller is honestly making no surprises. They want to sell it. Buyers do. They pay all cash, they want a discount. Although the 6 businesses I've sold so far this year, 2 of them were all cash. And discounted because of that. You can have an employment or consulting agreement. That's another way you sell a business, and part of the sale price really is you getting a consulting, a 5-year consulting agreement where they pay you. It works well for a C corp because now they pay you less for the C corp. You have a smaller tax, double tax issue. You take it out as consulting, and that comes with this one tax. Or employment, a lot of sellers are just burned out, and they still like the business, and they're still valuable to the business, but they don't want all the headache of workers' comp and payroll and advertising and getting a website and all that stuff. It's just beyond them. So they're good at selling. They're good at on the manufacturing floor. They want someone else to come in and take those headaches away from them, and that works out real well. You get part of your income as an employment contract. Earnouts are somewhat common where someone buys the business for X, and then there's an earnout. Okay, hey, I just got this new customer, the numbers are going like this. The buyer, of course, is concerned about, hey, I buy the business and the numbers turn down. So it's okay, here's purchase price, and part of it's going to be an earnout. I'm going to give you X percent of sales for the next 3 years, 5 years, whatever. And so the seller, especially if the seller stays, the seller is motivated to grow those numbers. The better those numbers, the more earnout he or she is going to get. That's another way to kind of get your value out of the business. The most important thing about goals is having one. It says overall benefit. You have a plan. You've got attorneys involved in financial planning and so on, CPAs, and you have less worry because if you don't know what to worry about, I think you worry even more. There's there's a lot of things to worry about. You get a good attorney or CPA, and I know a number of Dan Green here in town who's a good CPA. And in, a short period of time, they can tell you where the potholes are on that road to success and help you avoid them. Whereas if you don't know where the potholes are, you're just going to worry about it anymore. Maybe you're like that first quote where second one, the next thing about not planning is a failure comes as a complete surprise, but not preceded by a period of worry or depression. So maybe you're in that mode where you don't really worry about it because you don't want to, and then when it happens, now you're inside. And another handout, selling your business one-on-one, and I think I wrote 2 years ago. Then maybe we talk about your specific businesses, and I can give you some tips maybe on how to position them and what you might look out for in your business. Thank you. Yeah, I think the last quote, plan for the future because that is where you're going to spend the rest of your life. And a good plan today is better than a great plan tomorrow. And I agree with that totally. Yes, sir.
I thought it's very important that you create a good business model and not have you or have the business model depend on hire employees that would so the business would depend on you.
Yes.
And then also creating systems like programs so when a new employee comes in, they could learn that program. With those things and creating systems in that model, but that increase the evaluation of the business.
Absolutely. In fact, I just realized I jumped over that under 3D3 is financial records. And I didn't add all of the factors there, but if your financial records are poor, then the buyer's not going to pay as much for your business. You've got real dialed-in numbers. If you have a procedure manual, that is great. That takes some of the worry off the buyer. They have a procedure manual, the employees are trained, they know what to do. And you, the new buyer, if something comes up with a procedure manual, here's how it's handled. Got an employee manual, less chance of being sued by an employee, workers' comp, got a safety program. So the more of that kind of infrastructure you have, you're not just running the business by the seat of your pants, the better, the more valuable the business is. Certainly, to your point, you want to get away from this perception that you are a business. When it comes to talking about the channel of distribution of your customer, well, I got to bring in my sales people. I don't have that much content with the employees. You tell me about it, but you heard it. Manufacturing, let me bring in my manufacturing. So we've got an organization. So when the buyer steps into the CEO position, then they got the company should continue running pretty much the way it has been. So you have a startup company that's helping get employment, consulting agreement kind of thing. That sounds pretty cool because I think students have a lot to offer in terms of energy and certainly on the internet. Most of us teenagers anymore have a harder time with the computer and so on. But getting the word out, that's going to be the hard part for you. There's so much out there. How are you going to?
There isn't what I found during the research is there are obviously internships and there's search engines once you graduate, but there's nothing really targeted for kids creating their own jobs not having a degree. And so what I'm hoping is I have a network of college-age students just because my son is going off to college, so I have a network of college students who will kind of be my testers already across the country. So what it is they go on, create a profile, and whatever it is that they do, it doesn't have to be necessarily geared towards their major. It can be, I can, teach you how to speak Italian, or I know I've been playing the guitar for 10 years, or I can babysit, all these kinds of things. And so what I'm hoping is somebody will create a profile, they have their own link, they send it out out to all their family and all their friends through that link. And that person signs up and say, oh, hey, my niece is on this thing. If you live in, San Francisco and you're looking for somebody, and kind of spread it out that way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I see.
And then vice versa, say, I'm a real estate agent and I just need somebody to put up signs over the weekends. They can go on there, say, this is what I'm looking for this weekend, and college students in that area looking for jobs would go and say, oh, I can do that for $10 an hour on 3 this weekend. So it's vice versa. It's not just the college kids, but it's members of the community wanting to help these college kids by having these jobs available kind of at random.
Anybody else doing this that you know?
Yeah.
Is it like a directory?
It's not a LinkedIn because they're not a professional, but it's not a Facebook where it's kind of random. It's very specific to you type in, your zip code and what it is that you're looking for, and it will look all the kids in that area that would fit your needs, and kind of vice versa. If people are in a specific area, they would do that. And it's not just, university kids going to community college, or maybe you're a veterinary student and you can take care of somebody in animals while they're on vacation. It's, but it's kids trying to pay their way through school.
It could be a big success and get acquired by Microsoft or Facebook or one of the big companies.
Or like Landlord, one of the Atchison and that.
Yeah, be a millionaire. We said we know they're back in 14.
Yeah.
He was in that class.
It's multi-millionaire, thank you.
Multi-million. So what does you do?
I market for Melvin.com.
Okay. It's not your own company.
No, sir.
You should buy your own company. Yeah. Having your own company is really cool. I have my own. It's the best thing, one of the best things that ever come to me. But, get your skill set and line, and making that jump, that's the hard part. So you got to be saving. You got to save up. Something like most Americans don't save. Like most Americans spend about 103% of what they make every year. After a few years, they're big time in debt. But if you can save and have the ability to take that leap. There's other ways to finance a business acquisition. If you have a 401k, there's a company that will help you roll that money into a C Corp. That's why I'm a C Corp. My rules that I'm not in a 401k. Do a C Corp, no tax liability, no early withdrawal penalty, no tax consequence at all. That just a C Corp is just part of my retirement program. And when I ready to sell, I sell it. And when it goes back into my IRA or 401k, SBA, if you buy a business, 20% down, plus you have to keep working capital and sell it, carry 10%. My one is 70%. But that's usually secured by home equity. So if you don't have home equity, it's kind of hard to get an SBA loan, but not impossible. So the different ways to buy a business. Your business.
I create businesses.
Create businesses. Okay, so you're
I'm a cross-disciplinary inventor. Specialize in everything, but focus on energy, propulsion, aerospace,
consultant.
technologies. No, I'm not a consultant. Inventions, not developing those products.
So you have them and then sell those inventions. Okay. I think I saw you. I think I met you last year. Yeah. How about you? What do you do?
Well, my associates and I were trying to start a business,
Yes.
and I'm here because there are so many, what do you call it? Amazing things. So I'm here to educate myself, but I have a timeshare in Las Vegas I want to sell. When I buy this commercial and residential, it's not like real estate. So do you know something on how to sell a timeshare?
No, that's not something we've done. And,
Really?
we sell real estate if it's part of the business. Most business owners don't own the real estate, but they do, and we can do an AIRB, all these subscriptions.
Yeah.
do an AR lease or sales document. Most sellers have another option for a commission for getting your money out of your business. Most business owners that own the real estate and the business, they want to sell the business and lease the real estate so that they got an income stream. Especially in this market, commercial property is improving in value. But sometimes they want to sell it because their health issues at the preschool in Riverside. Real estate is worth $2.2 million. It's had an appraisal. And they want to sell it. Because they want to have the money. But when you take a seller note, you're taking some risk. Our experience is, been doing this 11 years, I think we've had 2 seller notes knocked at me. It's just bad. And the real estate is security for that seller note, so that's pretty secure. With a business, if you got a seller note and they run the business into the ground, you get the business back. Now the business isn't worth as much as that seller note was. So that's a bigger risk. But if it's real estate tends to hold its value. Yeah. Any other questions?
Do you know any good CPAs?
Yeah, Dan Green here in town. Shoot me an email. My card is in there. I'll send you 2 or 3. What your industry? We might want an intellectual property.
This is for investment.
For that company. Okay. Where's it located? Okay.
No, it's not a company. It's a financial investment.
There's a lot of good CPAs. Depends on the size of the business and so on. Susan Mass, I referred her to the big business. I referred her to the bigger CPA, 3 offices to this manufacturing company here, where a seller tried to get a Atchison ownership thing going. And I saw the 2 tax returns that she did after the wife did the tax return for years. Much better. They found some deductions, legal, valid deductions, and way to present things that were much better. But saving probably more than the cost of having that CPA prepare the tax returns.
Yes, with the new trend of employee work or the employee lifespan or work span is getting shorter. I mean, I think the average span for an employee in the company is 5 years now, and it's getting lower and lower. With that trend, is that increasing the evolution of the company over time, or?
In general, yes. I thought it was lower than that. It depends on what level. I mean, at the executive level, it's like 5 years long. For a blue-collar worker, it's much short. This company can go on to their employee that's been there 18 years. But the longer the employees you have been there, the more valuable the business is. And if the average is 2.5 years, the business isn't worth as much. They'll get something about the management and turnover and so on. And if you got somebody there on average 18 years, they know the manufacturing because they know the manufacturing process, they know the customers, they know how to tweak that machine when it starts getting out of tolerance. They're safer workers. So yeah, longer. One of the documents I get seller prepare is the census of employees. No names. We don't want to give out any. When you sell a business, it's done on a confidential basis. You don't want any of the buyers or anybody else to know that the business is for sale. Employees will find out. If they find out, they'll start saying, well, maybe the Korean buyer or whoever you want to get these weird ideas may not like me, so I better go find another job. You want the employees to know that, competitors will use that against you. If they find out vendors or employees, vendors, competitors, and customers. So the employee census is just their title, when they were hired, how much they get paid, any incentive, what their benefits are. So if I were to look at that and say, hey, he's a real finder, wait a minute, I could replace that person with my son. He's really good at whatever. And that helps reduce the risk, or at least define it. These people are being paid. I have a sort of business last Thursday. Auto repair shop. and the owner's kind of absentee, and his lead guy who turns the wrench all day is getting paid $65,000 a year. And my buyer, which represents the buyer in this deal, said, "Hey, that guy's the lead is who turns the wrench isn't worth 65 grand." That was one of the reasons he passed on it. A lot of other reasons, but they enrolled us in line and they've been there a long time and their benefits are in line. And that's the new plus. Yeah.
So I just think you think some cooperative, they're always less than because if you're cooperative, usually you pay employees more, and the profits don't usually. Profits supposed to be to the customers, I mean to the employees. Is that right?
I'm not familiar with cooperative.
It's like it's an employee-owned company.
Like an ESOP?
Sure.
Okay. ESOPs don't work out well. We sold one a couple of years ago and they collapsed the ESOP. I'm talking to a big contractor down in San Diego. He's got an ESOP and he's going to collapse it. It's seldom that ESOP employees will actually buy the business from the owner, because if they are entrepreneurial and would want to buy a company, they would have left and bought a company years ago. So they're not caliber. They don't have the thought process of an entrepreneur. They're a production person or direct sales or commissions or whatever. They don't understand something negative, just being descriptive of. So they seldom work out. That's my experience. I've done with a lot of them. And it'd be tough for an employee to step into a management role if they don't have that background, education, skill set. Anything else?
Thank you.
Before that quarter of the week thing I sent out, it's called quarter of the week, and it's Peter Drucker or Sports Figure and Success Winning Determination. Some use books from that. You can get a business card or send me an email and put you on that. And that's the success of your business. I think it's good that you've invested some time with this portfolio question, because things change, and if you're not keeping up with things, you're learning all the time.
Especially technology.
Yeah, especially technology. If you don't keep up with it, you're going to be left in the dust. So it's a compliment issue.
That's our specialty.
Thank you. All right, that's a success. I'll look for you. Look for a picture of business week. Sure. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Thank you. Surely.
I'm Roy Medley. Adrian. So we're business partners. We own a software development company. We do software applications, websites, finding consulting, and mention something about you connecting with businesses, right? Maybe we could do like something like going into a referring program, or like just be about you want the business to be about have a higher valuation, and you mentioned that business on the website increase the evaluation. And one thing we do is we focus on the newest web trends are. You mentioned like you can have some old like traditional website, and that's one of the things we do. We rate the newest type of trends. It's just stay. We're still on the new platform. Yes. Okay. And yes, this is what we do. What we do on there.
Yeah. My experience in referring consultants to my clients is one in the CPA. They don't want to spend, number one, website challenges the first American consultant team. And two, they're in the middle of selling their business down, looking for money into it. They want to pull back and save. But if you've got that, shoot me an email with a little paragraphs describing your value. I guess describe it. I want to tell somebody, I say, you know what, you have a website, this is not going to sell. referrals, this is brokers paying a generous referral fee. Things we have so far is $12,000 from business in Southeast. Interesting story. In this plan, monthly worker for 8 months or 550 to sell. I met with the guys, which is back to financials. Go back to him and said, Jose, well, he told me earlier on that he said, Jose, this is worth $4 with the buyer of Visa. Jose dropped the ball, we built this and escrow to the buyer and their grants. No one put that shit from those two, but it's twice what it was. I mean, 100 companies charge. I mean, 100,000. They 10% for the seller, 5% for the buyer. If you come across somebody who helped them and want to sell the business for a name, figure the check, figure the amount on the days. Thank you. Okay, Malone. Best success.
Well, thank you. And if you ever have any questions about any like web transactions, just give us a call and we'll answer any questions.
Yeah. Sunbelt is actually a franchise. Sunbelt is a franchise. We have 226 offices in both countries, and they provide a website. They're always improving it. It's great franchise, but having a website. So it's,
What I mean in regards to that, it's just like, you know, if you ever want to get some knowledge, like in that industry, just feel free to call us,
okay.
and like whatever we do, you know.
I'm looking at search engine optimization. I'm not doing it right now, but that's something you guys do. Okay. All right. I'm not calling it that. I have time.
I mean, there wouldn't be any questions we can answer. Just, I mean, I'm not trying to say anything, just everything we got.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, Milan.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. How can everybody do search engine optimization? I mean,
I'll tell you what.
okay. Everybody does.
Traditional ways of advertising, you brought, you brought information out to the public. So it's like shooting BBs out to the public and say which one you get, and that's which one's fine. But now you have people looking for services, asking questions. And so if they're going on, let's say, Google and searching up mechanics, well, your business has a good search. There's a search engine, good ranking, and it's up on the top 3 to 5 websites listed on there. And those you already have leads, I guess I would call them. They're not prospective customers, they're leads, people who are looking for that service. And so you're more likely to get a sale there.
I guess my question, I think, is really great. Every website optimize their results to be on top. It just depends on whether you're not.
And on the website as well, if you have a good design that attract visitors, the more visitors you have, the more ranking you have. Also, it's about analyzing the people who are on top, and just looking why they're up there. It's usually based on keywords, so you really have to look at and follow what the.
To be technical about it, it's in the code. It has the structure of the code, basic keywords, like he said, and
I
make it
don't
easier
know.
on Google and you have to search it.
I think I know of anybody.
Quick.
You never know.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me ask the question properly. I have to know more about how it works.
It's just the programming part, the development part.
Can you drill down on a competitor and see what keywords they're using?
Yeah.
I mean, if you ever have any questions, what's it called?
You know,
Thank you for attending.
Yeah, thank you.
again, everything from Marietta, pretty much, you guys support them.
Yes.
We're we did quite a good work. We do software development, app development,
Mobile application.
and website development. We also do hosting, domain, and consulting as well. Since we are college students, we know what's new on the market for the technology website. According to design and development.
With some of these websites, everything is so huge. It's like almost an endless scroll just keeps going. It's an endless page. I hate those things.
Well, I mean, it depends on the business as well
And
as
the target as well.
you know, if you want your aerospace, right? Aerospace. What I envision an aerospace website would be, you know, information on the homepage. But today, a lot of aerospace companies have anything, so it's too much for visitors. Too much information. It's like
Categories, you know.
so you have to categorize it. You have to design it a
Specific
specific
scrolling
way.
with no sidebars, no clickable links or categories.
Okay, I know what you, those are empty pages, like it's not how reading does it. Where it's like nothing but like pictures, right? Is that
Pretty
like
much.
no links,
Info,
Oh, yeah.
So you know,
Those are people who are doing it wrong. They're going towards the right direction, but they're doing it wrong. And there's a sign to it.
you can say there's a very important website in Hawaii. They're developing new green energies and energy storage. But I couldn't get anything out of that website. Maybe they just didn't have it. You know, just something out that I couldn't really have any services or anything to tie into.
check out OneDrive.com. If you want to know a little bit more about the trend, that would be a perfect design to see what's trending.
Yeah, OneDrive. Or even, I mean, a lot of one of the trends that we've done is it's called, companies are trying to adopt this trend. So, I mean, Starbucks were about this week, trying to about a month ago, I believe. And so I mean, it's really the way to go with the new web. And it'll last about another year and a half before they have to get it running. And it's, you know, it's important that you do follow up with these trends because I mean, there's so many competitors out there and customers evaluating 3 to 5 websites before they get to a service, shopping online. It's very important that your website is able to offer good experience and deliver messages appropriately for those customers or prospective customers to their services.
Another one that I use Firefox. They're having issues with
I do it so much, like, and
several platforms. Reporting that Amazon.
process of spending
It's like doing all the crap with a lot of websites are like Flash driven or
If you
I get nothing. I just get a icon to click on. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Google even hates Flash. If you use Flash, like you'll get yeah, Flash is the worst thing you use on websites because most people don't have Flash installed on their computer. And so like now, and also it slows it down as well. So you do have it installed. And so it's just Flash is so necessary. Flash should not be the
That's the more for it.
Actually, I was he showed me a website that he wanted me to look at it. And I was doing a client's website, and it crashed my computer, and I had to
And then Flash.
it was
It was
300 web pages open and a bunch of it. So I'm actually like 2 big grand. Laptop. I can do it. So that's because I'm going to that direction.
Well, yeah, give us a call. If you ever have any questions, send us an email.
Do you have a website, Brandon?
I just, maybe you can work on it. I've been unemployed for the last 4 years. I've been doing the inventing stuff. Should have somebody coming in shortly, so that.
Perfect. So what do you have?
I work with 9 Sigma. They compete with 9 Sigma or 9 sites. They're an open innovation company. Open innovation is where outside innovators can provide solutions to companies seeking solutions to their problems.
Right.
Like right now, I'm providing a solution to GE and Aramco. They partnered for more cost-effective desalinization using green energy. Well, I've got both. I've got a super duper wind turbine that can produce 5 times more energy than efficient turbines. GE's in wind turbines that do that quickly. I've got hydraulically powered turbines. GE's into turbines that do like really. So anyway, so I'm providing solutions to that, desalinization and the energy. So
Some hardware.
yeah, well, so right now I'm playing it low key. I don't have to have a business website with these open innovation companies. I focus on plastic. There's others like Edison Nation.
Probably, you have a Facebook for the company?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn,
Under my name.
No, it was in the.
Oh, we're being recorded.
Yeah, you can watch the video.
Oh, it's live, it's live, right? Nice.
Yeah, you can say you would do it.
Visit q5.com.
Is this live right now?
Yeah.